Am I audible to everyone? Can you guys hear me?
Namaste. Yes, I can hear you.
Namaste. Good morning to everyone. So let's begin today's session. Yeah. Back and neck straight. Close the eyes and start observing your breath. Just observe the natural flow of your breath. A deep inhale and as you exhale, and slowly begin to deepen the breath. Now that your mind is relaxed, your body is also relaxed. Prepare yourself for chanting Om 3 times, followed by 3 Shantis. Inhale deeply for Om. Just feel the vibrations. Join both the palms together in front of the chest and rub both the palms together. Place them on your eyes. And very slowly, while blinking and looking at your palms, open up the eyes, come back with a smile. Namaste to everyone. Let us begin today's session. So today we are going to discuss a very interesting topic, and I have been again and again mentioning it in your classes. So today we are going to go in depth about the study of Bhagavad Gita. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishad. This is the full name of the text. Srimad Srimad Bhagavad 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 Gita Gita Upanishad UPNISHAD. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishad, right? And I have been mentioning this text when, I've been teaching you certain concepts also in this chapter. This is given in this chapter, this is given, right? So we need to know about the text also. What is this text about? Why this text? And, why is this such an important part of your yoga course, right? So it's a very important yogic text, right? And it was, there is a very prominent epic in the Indian tradition called Mahabharata. MAHA. Gita. So short name for the entire text is either Gita or Bhagavad Gita, right? And a, a portion of this text became very famous, and that got to be known by this name, right? And this text is not just a text for yoga, it's a text for the way of living one's life, right? It's not just merely, reading something and, feeling in awe of something. Like when you read certain quotes in life and you feel in awe of certain quotes, right? And then there are some words which, they affect you deeply and so deeply that you change the way in which you live, right? You change your entire being, the entire way of your existence, the way in which you used to deal with situations. Now when you deal with those same situations, something has changed, something changes within us. And Bhagavad Gita is a text which has had that impact on multiple people. Originally they were thinking of things and dealing with things in completely different manner, in a completely different way, which caused them so much suffering. And once they read this text, they see the right way of dealing with things, they see the right way of doing things. And when they do this thing, that is when they see so many changes in life, right? So whatever has been written, when it is implemented, that is when you can see the reality or the truth of something. Otherwise, somebody who is doing yoga can show 10 books to somebody who is, studying some very, scientific thing, and both of them can end up in arguments. I am right, I am right, this is my book, this is your book, right? Like that. But it's the implementation part. If you can implement it, you can actually experience what is being said, and that is the best part about anything that you do in yoga, right? So suppose, your asana teacher tells you that this is the benefit of this asana, and then you actually do that asana, and you see that, okay, this is where the stretch is coming, and I feel that difference, and I feel that yes, it is benefiting, this part of the body, right? So that is when, all of that thing turns into your experience, and then you see that, all right, this is happening, right? So, Srimad Bhagavad Gita is also a text like that. If you read it, you will find the correct way of navigating through life and dealing with situations in your life. and it is as relevant as it was years back when Mahabharata was written. It is as relevant as that time, even till date, right? So let me come a little bit to the meaning of the text itself. So Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishad, right? So I gave this long name, and everybody goes into confusion. What is this? So Gita. So Gita is, in Hindi we have this word Geet, so song, literally meaning song. So, the knowledge was sung by, Lord Krishna, and you'll find that the text is in conversation style and has uh, various shlokas in it. So the format is conversation, and the way in which it was written was Sanskrit shlok, right? So there are around 700, total of 700 shlokas in the entire text, which has been divided into 18 chapters, right? So there are 18 chapters, 700 verses, right? And I was telling you it is a part of Mahabharata. So in Mahabharata, there are different, uh, chapters called Parv, Parva. So this is a part of the Bhishma Parv, Bhishma, Bhishma Parv, Parva, 25th to the 42nd, right? These are the sub chapters, and these sub chapters, when you count them, they are 18, and this portion specifically got to be famously known as Bhagavad Gita. So when Lord Krishna was convincing Arjun to fight the battle, I will tell you the story behind it also. So when he was convincing you know uh, Arjun to fight this battle, that is when the entire this text takes place. And here one of them, both of them are actually very intelligent on their own level, but still Arjun represents the lower mind, right? So we all function in our lower mind most of the time, right? It is only when we go very deep into spirituality that we can actually experience our higher mind. um, but most of us are caught in day-to-day thoughts and dealing with only those things, right? We are not thinking of something beyond that. So we are mostly functioning in our lower mind. So Arjun represents the lower mind of the human being, or the senses. The senses have this tendency to run out all the time, yeah, to their objects. So one thing is that Arjun represents that he was the student, you know uh, and then you will see that Krishna, so he is the god, and Krishna Bhagwan, he represents the higher mind, or we can say the intellect or buddhi. So when we did yoga chitta vritti nirodh, we did man buddhi ahankar, right? So buddhi, I told you then also that buddhi was that state of the mind, right? Where the decision making takes place. So it knows what is best for you and what isn't best for you, right? So that one is represented by Krishna Bhagwan. right? And I'm going to write down all the spelling, so don't worry about it. I'm going to tell you everything, right? But for now, I'm just giving you the names and telling you, like, when the conversation is going on, it's actually going on between the senses and the intellect, right? For us, that is how it is relevant. Or it is going on between the lower mind and the higher mind, where the higher mind is telling you, this has to be done, this needs to be done, right? And this is the duty, the responsibility, right? So let me come back a little bit and tell you first the story of Bhagavad Gita. How do we reach this stage, where one party is convincing the other party to, go fight a war, right? So it doesn't sound very yogic when you say, go fight and you have to do it, right? So let's go back a little bit, right? And let's start from the beginning, where we begin to understand what happened actually, which led to this war, right? So there were two brothers, right? One of them was Pandu, yeah, and one of them was Dhritarashtra, right? And both of them, brothers and kings, right? So both of them had, sons, right? So Pandu had 5 sons, right? And they famously got to be known as the Pandavas. Okay, and Dhritarashtra, he had 101 children, right? Out of which 100 were, sons, and he had one daughter, right? So the 100 sons were commonly and famously together known as the Kauravas, right? And Pandu passed away very early, so the Pandavas were raised with the Kauravas. So the 5 sons of Pandu were raised with the 100 sons of the Kauravas, and they were given, all the you know education, everything was given with the Kauravas. So their guru was also the same. So Dronacharya, their guru, he was also the same. So he taught both the Kauravas and the Pandavas, and they grew up together. They, shared a lot of things together when you grow up as children, right? Together. So there are a lot of memories, everything that you share. So they grew up together, and but there was a slight problem in this thing. Why? Because the Pandus were much more intelligent and much more capable than the Kauravas were, right? So that became an issue. Why? Because the Kauravas were also wanted to be, that capable, right? But they weren't, right? So the main person from the Kauravas, Duryodhan, he was, we can say, the leader of the Kauravas. So he got very jealous, right? And after a while, what happened was the Kauravas and the Pandavas, what they decided was that they're going to live separately, right? So the Pandus, they lived separately, and Kauravas lived separately, because um, there was so much envy that was there uh, in their relationship, which started to build up. So, all right, now they are living separately, but Duryodhan was still not satisfied. He was quite jealous, and he was quite, uh, like, he wanted to punish the Pandavas. So, what he did was, because he knew uh, that Yudhishthir was one of the Pandavas, so uh, Yudhishthir, he invited him for a game of dice, right? Yeah. So he, invited Yudhishthir for a game of dice, and he cheated him. And when he cheated him, Yudhishthir lost. right? And he lost everything, including his wife, in that game of dice. So at the end, he put his wife at stake as well, like because it was gambling, right? So he lost everything, and in the end, things built up in such a way that it was decided that the Pandavas were going to go and live in exile for 13 years, right? And they will not rule the kingdom in those 13 years, of course. And they have to complete this exile. And after that, when they come back, then, you know, after those 13 years, they can come back, basically, right? So out of these 13 years, 12 years they were supposed to live in the forest, and uh, you know uh, but the last 1 year was specifically tough. So the last 1 year they should not be discovered by anybody else, right? So Yudhishthir, Duryodhan put this like condition that in the last 1 year you will when you are living in exile, you should not be discovered by anyone else. If you are, then all of your sentences like counts for nothing, right? So what happened was, when this thing happened, right? The Kauravas, placed a lot of obstacles on their way in their 12 years of exile, and specifically during the 13th year, they tried to, create more and more situations where they could be found, right? So, but somehow, facing all of these obstacles, the Pandavas completed their time of exile, right? And then they came back to the kingdom. Once they had completed their time in exile, they came back to the kingdom to claim their rightful place in the kingdom, right? But at that point of time, Duryodhan, because of his high level of ego, he said, no, I'm not going to give you even the slightest, tiniest portion in the kingdom, right? So you can, like, it's okay if you have completed your punishment, but I'm not going to give you even the smallest portion of this area to rule, right? So that is when the Pandavas said that this is not fair. And eventually it was decided that there was going to be a war, right, where the Pandavas will be able to claim their rightful place in the kingdom, right? So at that point of time, the state of Dwarka, it's a place in India, so that was ruled by Bhagwan Krishna, right? The character, one of the main characters in Bhagavad Gita. And both Duryodhan and Arjun represented the Pandavas, and Duryodhan was representing the Kauravas. So both of them, what they did was they went to Krishna, Lord Krishna, and told him about the war that was going to happen, right? And you know when they went to his kingdom, so he was sitting on the throne, and his eyes were closed, and he was just meditating over there. And Arjun was a very big devotee of Lord Krishna, right? So he, by default, when he came in the kingdom, he went down and sat on his near his feet, right? Because he was such a big devotee. And Duryodhan, because he thought that his rightful place as a king going to another kingdom is close to the king, he sat uh, near Krishna ji. There was some uh, place near Krishna ji where the closest people and the most trusted ministers used to sit, right? So he went and sat over there, right? So by default, when Krishna ji opened his eyes, he saw Arjun first, right? And then he saw Duryodhan, right? So then, they told him everything that was going to happen. And he said that, okay, I'm going to give you a choice. Either you can have my army, and his army was considered to be undefeatable at that point of time. It was a very strong army. So either you can have my army on your side, right? One of you can have the army on your side, and another option is that I will stand on your side during the war, but I'm not going to pick up any weapons, right? So he said, I'm not going to fight, right? I will be a part of the war, I will be on one of the sides, but I will not hurt a single person in the war, right? So because he saw Arjun first, he gave Arjun the first choice. He said, choose. You have two options, so choose. So Arjun, because he was such a great devotee of Lord Krishna, he directly chose Lord Krishna by his side without any weapons. Okay, so Lord Krishna, he accepted and he said that I will ride your chariot, right? I will be that person who will ride your chariot. So Arjun said, okay. And Duryodhan was very happy by default because he was always aiming for the, strongest army, right? He wanted to have the strongest army by his side so that, uh, it becomes undefeatable, right? So his side becomes undefeatable. So, all right, both were very happy and they left because, the war, it was very well established that now the war is going to take place, right? So after this thing happened, Lord Krishna, once again he thought that, over such a petty matter, they are going to have such a huge war. So, why do this? Let's do one thing. Let me go to Duryodhan, right? And let me, try to negotiate with him. Like if he is willing to, give a part of the kingdom and, some negotiation can be made and the war can be avoided. So Lord Krishna himself went to Hastinapur, another place in India, right? And he went to Duryodhan's kingdom over there, and he said to Duryodhan that, uh, let's negotiate, and you give us total 5 villages in the entire kingdom, and it is enough for the Pandavas to live, exist, and they will have some portion of the kingdom to rule. So that's all right, right? So we are not asking you for half of the kingdom of, or the rightful share of the Pandavas. You give us 5 villages, right? And we will, go ahead, we will proceed, and everything will flow in peace and harmony. So let's do that. So Duryodhan said, no, I'm not going to give them even 5 villages. So Krishnaji said, okay, so give us 5 houses, right? Do not give 5 villages, also give us 5 houses, some area over which we can rule, and the Pandavas can stay there peacefully, right? So even then Duryodhan said no, right? So eventually, even Krishnaji was unable to negotiate, and then it became quite clear that there was going to be a war, right? There was no other way to go about this entire situation. So as soon as Krishnaji was about to leave the palace of Duryodhan, Duryodhan, out of his ego, said that, uh, he's supporting Arjuna a lot. So let me do one thing. Let me uh, put him in jail, like, let me capture him while he is over here, right? So when he is about to do that, when he gives that instruction, that is when, Krishna ji shows his real form as God, right? So right now he is the king, ruling certain area in India, but that is when he shows his real state of being God, and he says that, you are going to tie me, like I'm the source of creation of everything, you cannot possibly tie me up, right? And a very beautiful poem, if you understand Hindi, right? It's called Krishna ki Chetavni, right? And it is at this, like, if you listen to this, if you YouTube this, you know, poem, the portion that you will see that is available, right? It is directly describing what happened as soon as Duryodhan tried to tie down Lord Krishna. So beautiful poem. If you understand Hindi, I would highly recommend you to go and listen to this poem, quite inspiring, and it's the way in which Krishna ji describes his power, and that he is the past, present, and future. Right? He is time himself. Right? And we are all, we are a creation of him, and we will come back to him once we die. So very beautiful poem. Again, if you understand Hindi, you can go ahead and listen to this poem, right? And after that, after this was decided that now war is final, during the war, in India, when we had wars, there were certain rules and regulations, and very well defined rules and regulations, right? Like during night, there was going to be no, nobody was going to fight, right? And one of the rules was that, so uh, when the two armies were standing facing each other, right? Um, both the armies will get some time to strategize before the war starts, right? So finally we reach to the point where everybody is standing on the battlefield, right? And both the parties get some time to strategize. So Arjun at that point of time tells Krishna to take his chariot ahead to the point where he could see the other army, right? So when he saw the other army, he saw his entire family standing on the other side, right? And not only his family, he also saw his guru. Dronacharya was also standing on the Kauravas side. And guru and student relationship is very, very sacred, right? And no matter what happens, like, the student can never go against the guru, right? So immediately when Arjun saw his entire family standing on the other side, and most of all, he saw his guru standing on the other side, he gave up. He said that, no, I'm not going to fight this war, because what is the point of, even attaining the kingdom if I don't have my loved ones to share it with, right? My family members to share it with. And most of all, my guru is standing on the other side. He taught me how to, um, shoot an arrow, and this is how I repay him. you know I'm going to go after his life. That is not how you repay your guru. So at that point of time, Krishna ji, when Arjun was in such a deep and big dilemma, at that point of time, Krishna ji says that, no, this is your duty. you know in the battlefield, you are standing as a warrior, right? And right now it is your duty to fight the other side, regardless of who is standing on the other side, because they have also done injustice to you. So right now, this state of decision making is not correct. This way of making your decision is not correct, because you have also been wronged, right? And you have to claim your rightful place in the kingdom. It is not practical for you to uh, give up your kingdom, right? You have a responsibility right now in the battlefield to fight, right? And the entire 18 chapters, Krishna ji tries to explain to him in different ways, you know so first chapter he did not understand, then he questioned again, then Krishna ji answered again. So each and every chapter is one form of yoga, right? So there are 18 forms of yoga that are given in Bhagavad Gita, right? And which, out of which, the most prominent ones, that we will also discuss are Karma Yoga, Raj Yoga, Dhyan Yoga. No, the term Dhyan Yoga has been used over here. So Dhyan Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. So when we discuss the schools of yoga, I'm going to repetitively, refer back to Bhagavad Gita, how it is given in Bhagavad Gita, because these four major schools, you find very major principles of these schools written in this text, right? And you know uh, each and every time Krishna ji explained to him, to Arjun, This is why you have to fight. He used to, constantly question back, and he was not getting convinced. So it took him 18 chapters to get convinced to, go against his own family, go against his own guru. And I would say he was a very high level yogi, because for us, I think it would take us so much time, and we would probably end up, giving up, right? But Arjun ji was such, an enlightened being, that yes, it took him 18 chapters, but after those 18 chapters, he did not question his decision back, right? And when this entire war was taking place, so Dhritarashtra, the father of the Kauravas, he was blind by birth, right? So the writer of Mahabharata, Vyas ji, he came to Dhritarashtra himself and he said, let me give you divine vision so that you can see what is going on through during the war. And at that point of time, he says, no, I spoiled my sons and I cannot see them die. He admitted that it was his fault, that, Duryodhan had such a high ego. But he said that regardless, I cannot see my sons die. So at that point of time, this vision is granted to another character uh, called Sanjay, right? So there are four characters that are there in Bhagavad Gita, right? So there are two conversations that are going on. One is going on between Sanjay and Dhritarashtra, right? So they are away from the war, and Sanjay is narrating to Dhritarashtra that this is happening. And within that conversation, he quotes the conversation of Krishna and Arjun, right? And when he quotes that conversation, that is a conversation within a conversation. So major talking takes place between Arjun and Lord Krishna, but there is another conversation that is taking place. So you will find all these four characters in Bhagavad Gita, right? So till now, are there any doubts? Then I'll move ahead. Did you guys get the story?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So now we have reached the main point which we were actually discussing, right? And I'll just write down the names for you so that you have all the name. Krishna and Arjun, Krishan, and Arjun, Arjuna. Krishna Arjun, right? So Krishna ji has 574 verses, and Arjun has 84 verses. Right, and then we have the other conversation. Dhritarashtra and Sanjay, right? Dhritarashtra, Dhritarashtra, and Sanjay, Sanjay. So Dhritarashtra only has one verse, right? And Sanjay has 41 verses in total when you read Bhagavad Gita. So this makes up for the 700 verses that are there in the text. Again, this text has been written by Ved Vyas. Yeah. So Ved Vyas, Vedyasa, right? It was written by him, and uh, this entire text, it will tell you once again how you can manage your life. From Karma Yoga to Gyan Yoga to Bhakti Yoga to Dhyan Yoga, all of these levels and so many other forms of yoga, whichever one suits you the best, you can go ahead, pick that up and implement it in your life, right? So that is why, you know, I always try to emphasize that, at least once in your life, you should have read this text, because at least you will gain an understanding of which yoga suits you the most, and then you can go in depth and detail of that form of yoga and go and incorporate that form of yoga in your life. Like, it's not necessary that uh, do everything, right? But you can choose one form of yoga, and that is what all of your journey is about, right? Choosing one thing that suits and fits your belief system, your personality, and continuously working on that rather than spreading, going into 10 different things, right? And gaining no result out of it because you are putting your energy in 10 different things. You can actually work on first trying to complete your research about which path suits you the most. And once you get to know which path suits you the most, that is when you can actually go deeper into it. And uh, that is when your journey will move forward. When you put all your attention towards one thing, all your energy in one thing, that is when you begin to see results. If that same energy is directed in 10 different areas, and those go in 10 different directions, then there is no point. No matter how much you put in, you will never receive the output you are looking for. So it is an amazing text for you to very precisely get to know which path suits you the most, and then uh, picking that path up, you can go deeper, right? Now, as you would have seen, I have used the term Upanishad, when I uh, wrote the full name. So I use the word Upanishad. So it is said that Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the Upanishads. So there are so many Upanishads that are out there. Uh, as per one source, there are 108 Upanishads out there. But why, if you are not too much into delving very deeply into reading each and every Upanishad, then why take your time over there? You can read this one text, only 700 verses. You can read this one text and gain the essence of whatever all the Upanishads are trying to say, right? And you know it's more about understanding, right? Experiencing what is being said rather than just reading it merely for the sake of reading it. And if you actually truly want to read this text, you will see that it will take you time, because there are so many things that have been said over there, which are easy to read but hard to digest, right? So when you go through this process, the whole your entire analytical mind is going to come in and try to understand what is being said, right? So that is why your entire being is going to be absorbed when you read Bhagavad Gita, because there is so much analysis that will go on by the nature of the text. There is so much analysis that will go on within you, that you are actually going to ponder upon things that maybe you never gave time, right? So highly recommended for all of you to read it. And in fact, I've heard a lot of people like and seen a lot of people who do not understand the meaning of Bhagavad Gita, right? So there is another side to it. So there are some people who do not understand the meaning of Bhagavad Gita, but they chant Bhagavad Gita every day. In our Indian tradition, especially in Hindu tradition, we chant. We used to, past generations used to chant the verses of Bhagavad Gita again and again every day. And when they did that, they just by mere chanting of the verses, their life, changed drastically. So they didn't have to, read, understand, go into entire depth of what Krishna ji is trying to say. Just because they were the words of God. Even when we try to, enunciate those and chant them every day, the life of the person, who is doing this practice changes drastically just by doing this, right? So you can see which category you are in, and you can actually go ahead and learn the correct way of chanting the verses, and just go with the verses and see how it changes, brings about a change in your life, right? Any doubts in any of this? Any doubts?
No, thank you very much. Everything is fine,
Yeah.
understandable.
All right. Okay, great. So then we can end today's session, right? So let's close the class. Back and neck straight. Gently close your eyes and start observing your breath. We'll chant Om one time, followed by three Shantis. Inhale deeply for Om. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Relax. Join the palms together and bow down. Let's take a few moments in the day to be grateful for everything we have. Join the palms and then drop the palms. Keep them on the eyes. Rest fully while blinking and looking at the palms. Open up your eyes, come back with a smile. And namaste to everyone. I will see you all for your pranayam class at 3, right? And bye-bye to everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.